All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give it. Oops. Oh, yes, I am unmuted. Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give it another minute or two for other people to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We're just waiting for a few more participants to join, but once we reach a point where participants have slowed down, we'll go ahead and get started. And then we'll go ahead and get into the meat of our presentation. So thank you for joining today. We'll just be another minute or so. Thank you. Okay, looks like it's slowed down, so I think we'll go ahead and get started with our workshop today. I first just like to thank everyone for being here, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today and for taking the time to attend this public workshop. Today we'll be presenting proposed amendments to further reduce NOx emissions from natural gas-fired fan-type central furnaces throughout San Diego County. This emission source is currently regulated by District Rule 69.6, which we intend to amend through this proposed action. First, we'll do some quick introductions from APCD staff on the line, and then we'll get into the bulk of our presentation and then have ample time for questions and feedback. My name, first off, is Nick Cormier, and I'm the Rule Development Supervisor here at the district. With me today is Archie De La Cruz, who is our Associate Engineer, who is leading this effort and will be doing the lion's share presenting. We also have on the line Mike Watt, Deputy Director of our division, and then we also have our Administrative Analyst, Janet McHugh, who is supporting us behind the scenes. As mentioned, we're here today so we can learn a bit more about our proposal, but we do mainly want to hear from you today. If you'd like to submit comments after today's presentation, we'll have a Q&A session at the conclusion of our presentation. But if you'd like to submit comments after the presentation, we will be accepting comments through July 2nd. We will do our best to respond to what we can this afternoon, but if for some reason we aren't able to respond to a certain question or topic, or we need more time to research it, we'll be preparing a response to comments report that will seek to respond to all the comments we've received, and that report will come out a few weeks after our workshop today. Everybody who has signed up for today's Zoom meeting should receive a copy of that report via email. Finally, we are recording this workshop today, and we do hope to post it on APCD's YouTube page by the end of this week. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started into the lion's share of our presentation. And now I'll hand over the reins to Archie for our presentation. Archie?
All right. Thank you, Nick. And hello, everyone. So let's get started. Initially adopted by the board in 1998, Rule 69.6 currently regulates furnaces, also called space heaters, that are used in San Diego County, fired exclusively with natural gas, provide heated air through ducts more than 10 inches in length, and have a heat input capacity of less than 175,000 BTUs per hour, or a cooling capacity of less than 65,000 BTUs per hour for combination and heating units. This rule applies to furnaces used in residential and commercial settings and is considered a point of sale rule. This means any person who manufactures, distributes, sells, offers for sale, or installs furnaces for use in San Diego County is responsible for complying with Rule 69.6. Owners, operators, and end users of furnaces are not responsible for demonstrating compliance with Rule 69.6. Next slide. Two main proposed amendments to Rule 69.6 are as follows. First, all furnaces installed in San Diego County, except those installed in manufactured and mobile homes, would not be able to emit more than 14 nanograms nitrogen oxides per joule. The existing emission standard for these furnaces is 40 nanograms. Consequently, a reduction to 14 nanograms results in a 65% decrease in NOx emissions compared to the existing standard in place today. The 14 nanogram limit would align with existing furnace limits in place today at Bay Area, South Coast, and San Joaquin Valley air districts. Next slide. Second, furnaces installed in manufactured and mobile homes would not be able to emit more than 40 nanograms NOx per joule. At present time, there is no existing emission standard for furnaces installed in manufactured and mobile homes. Consequently, furnace emissions in these communities are unregulated. With this proposed change, the district is proposing to require an emission standard for these furnaces for the first time to further protect public health. The district believes setting a limit for such equipment would result in an 80% decrease in emissions compared to actual unregulated equipment on the market today. The 40 nanogram limit for furnaces installed in manufactured and mobile homes would also align with previous limits required in South Coast and San Joaquin Valley air districts. Next slide. To demonstrate compliance with Rule 69.6, the district may request a certification statement for a new furnace model from a manufacturer, distributor, or other entity subject to the rule. Note, the certification is not for each furnace, but for each new furnace model. Once the certification requirement is fulfilled for a specific furnace model, all new furnaces of that model are not required to submit a certification statement. As mentioned, the emission limits being proposed are consistent of those found in other air districts. As such, if a furnace model has been previously certified by South Coast, San Joaquin Valley, or Bay Area air districts and demonstrates compliance with the proposed amendments, that air district's approved certification may be submitted to the district to demonstrate compliance in San Diego County. Details of what the certification statement should contain are specified in Rule 69.6, Section E. Next slide. Other rule requirements include the furnace and its shipping carton shall be labeled with a model name, model number, and its capacity. The furnace manufacturer shall maintain certification records and emission test records for each furnace model. Details of the emission test methods and its requirements can be found in Rule 69.6, Sections H and I. These requirements were updated to provide alternative test methods, harmonize with the other proposed amendments in the rule, and align with EPA performance standards. Next slide. The proposed amendments to Rule 69.6 are supported by many of the district's recent planning documents to attain state and federal ozone standards, including the district's state plan known as the Regional Air Quality Strategy, or RAQS, as well as the district's federal state implementation plan known as the SIP. The proposed actions are also referenced in local level community emission reduction plans, or SERPs, including SERPs for both the portside and international border communities. The proposed amendments play a role in fulfilling these plans that would result in a reduction of about 256 tons of NOx per year and has an equipment cost effectiveness of $95 per pound of NOx reduced. The NOx emission reduction is estimated to benefit San Diego County with a decrease of 617 health-related incidences, such as reduced cases of asthma, bronchitis, and lost days work. The NOx emission reduction is also estimated to result in health cost savings of more than $13 million. Next slide. Proposed amendments to Rule 69.6 are tentatively scheduled to be presented to the Governing Board in November 2024. If the Governing Board adopts the amendments as proposed currently, the amendments would become effective 6 months after adoption. The 6-month sell-through period would allow transition time for manufacturers and distributors to phase out existing inventory of old furnaces that no longer comply with the amended rule. Existing furnaces that are currently installed and in use at residences and facilities would not be affected by the proposed amendments and may continue to operate as is until the end of their useful life. When an existing furnace needs to be replaced, and if the proposed amendments are adopted, the new replacement furnace would need to comply with the proposed amendments. Next slide. During the course of the district's review, the district evaluated the potential requirement of installing zero emission, typically electric, furnaces as part of the proposed amendments. Through this evaluation, the district determined the proposed amendments, if adopted, would achieve significant NOx emission reductions in the short term that will be critically needed to assist in the region's attainment efforts to reduce ozone. The region is attempting to meet the federal deadline of 2026 to attain federal ozone standards. Thus, readily available technology that can be deployed quickly at a minimal cost and no technological barriers are necessary. Additionally, the proposed amendments track and work in concert with statewide furnace and water heater regulations currently in development with the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. CARB's efforts, which are ongoing as we speak, are working to address highly complex topics, including the high cost of zero-emission technology, as well as potential equity concerns associated with mandating significantly more expensive devices in low-income and disadvantaged communities. The result of their work will hope to address significant technological and equity barriers in adoption. CARB's zero-emission appliance regulation is slated for their board's consideration in the 2025 and 2026 timeframe, with the latest proposal indicating that they may require zero-emission devices statewide for furnaces as soon as 2029. The district fully supports CARB's efforts to require zero emissions for these devices and others, and will be participating in their efforts moving forward. Should the CARB regulation be adopted as anticipated, the district would consider aligning our respective local rule with CARB's statewide regulation, should the need exist. However, in the meantime, the district proposed amendments to Rule 69.6 today are an expedient way to significantly reduce NOx emissions in the short term to improve public health and a natural interim step to ultimately transition San Diego County to zero emitting furnaces in the near future. Next slide. The district evaluated San Diego County specific data in relation to possible costs surrounding a requirement of zero emission furnaces. Costs for electric furnaces can range between $2,900 to $30,000 more than traditional combustion devices, depending on whether upgrades are needed for their electrical panel and underground wiring. These costs are consistent with other areas in the state. Because of the high cost, equity concerns, and in some cases, technological barriers, Bay Area recently adopted a zero emission regulation that built in time to evaluate such aspects up and until 2029, when electric furnace requirements are to phase in. In the interim, to achieve significant and needed short-term emission reductions and quickly improve public health, Bay Area, as well as South Coast and San Joaquin, are currently requiring a 14 nanogram limit consistent with the district proposed amendments. Next slide. The district encourages everyone to consider installing zero emission furnaces right now. Currently, there are incentives like the Inflation Reduction Act and the Tech Clean California rebates that can assist with purchasing a new electric furnace. Combined, both of these furnaces can provide up to $11,000 in savings for those that qualify. There is a lot of interest associated with electrifying appliances. The district has been participating in CARB's, Bay Area's, and South Coast zero-emission work groups to ensure San Diego County is ready to hit the ground running when the statewide zero-emission regulations are put into place. Next slide. You may find the changed copy of the proposed amendments and the informational video in English and Spanish in the district rural development webpage. And there's also a link in the chat that Janet has provided. You can get there using the link presented or by going to sdapcd.org and search for workshops. If you have additional questions or comments, please email me at my address up there, archi.delacruz@sdapcd.org, or call me at 858-586-2894. We'll be accepting comments through July 2. Thank you for your time and attention.
Okay. Thank you, Archie. At this point, we'll now going to open up the workshop to comments and questions. We'd ask that you raise your Zoom hand in the comments, or as comments come in the chat, you can either raise your hand and I'll respond to them in the order that I see them on my screen, or you can post your comments in the chat as well. We'll call upon you in the order that they kind of appear on my screen, and we'll just continue going through the list as we see them. We'll try to get through as many comments as possible today. It looks like we have a fairly manageable group on the line today of people, so we should have plenty of time to get into any comments or questions that you may have. As a reminder, we'll do our best to tentatively respond to feedback today, but our official responses that will be on the record will be included in our forthcoming response to comments report. And again, that is something that you all will receive a copy of in the next few weeks after this workshop, once that has been prepared. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for comments and questions. And I do see one hand up. It's for David Stevens. David, feel free to unmute yourself and provide your comment.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is Dr. David Stevens. I work for Janet Johnson Controls. So it's kind of near and dear to our heart, the subject matter. I've got about 4 questions I would like to pose. You anticipate having your rule to the board of directors in November with a 6-month delay for effectivity. Furnaces that are, I'm sure what reason you're doing this is you allow the on-site or the local distributors an opportunity to empty their warehouses of older product. Makes sense and appreciated. But based off this, if I built a unit on April 10th, let's say November, so end of April is your 6 months. If I built a unit in April 10th and I got it to district, I could still install that until the end of April, if I understand correctly, based upon your current rule. Is that correct?
Let's see, November.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the question is that in terms of the 6 month, sell-through period, if you were to make something at the beginning of April, would you be able to install it by the end of April, assuming the effective date is in April of 2025? Is that
is correct. That is correct. So it's date of install, not date of manufacture. That's a very important subtle point. And you don't have to answer now. Think about it.
Yeah, I think we'll double check on our dates. I don't want to I just want to make sure we're clear on the dates, but I think I understand the question.
Yeah,
we'll have to get back to you on that one.
You understand correctly. Okay, second question. I didn't see in the current draft propane. Is propane included, or is it exempt, or?
Yeah, the rule as it sits, it is a natural gas fired rule. So as the regulation and the proposed amendments exist today, propane furnaces would not be affected.
it's exempt by virtue of not being natural gas.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Next one. Power, electrical power. If I come in with a natural gas fueled furnace and I put it under electrical transformer and run it off of DC power, is it still qualified, still under the rule? I mean, you're saying any natural gas, no matter what your driving power supply is. Is that correct?
That, I believe that's the intent, but I think that's another one where we're gonna have to double check and make sure that
I understand.
that in that situation, so in the situation that you're referring to, you have a natural gas fired furnaces that is powered through, I didn't quite follow that, through an electrical system.
I'll say direct current as opposed to alternating current. Somebody comes in with a unit that runs off of I don't know, power converter or solar cells or whatever. So something not anticipated from a power source.
Are you still saying that it's still fueled by natural gas or fueled by?
Yes, it would still be fueled by natural gas. I would think your current rule that it still is covered.
I mean, I would tentatively say that it probably would still be covered, but I think we'll just do a double check after our workshop just to make sure. But if I'm understanding it, if it ultimately is still being fueled and producing emissions from natural gas, I believe it would be covered by the rule. But like I said, we'll make sure our official response kind of reflects that.
Intuitively, I would agree with you 100%, but this is one of the things we want to get the I's dotted and T's crossed. Okay, last item. You refer several times through there about an electric furnace. Now, from a HVAC manufacturer perspective, an HVAC electric furnace is different than a heat pump. Are you talking actual resistance electric heat, or are you talking about a heat pump install?
In general, it would be just anything that uses electricity to generate the heat. So it could be a heat pump, it could be electrical resistance. The electrical stuff we brought in is actually beyond the scope of this rule, because this rule is only focusing on natural gas furnaces. But we know it's something that's coming, and we're showing how this rule folds in that whole bigger plan that California is working on to electrify a lot of things.
Okay. I understand what you're saying, and I applaud it. It scares the bejeebers out of me because going electrical resistance heat, eat your electrical power lines. That's you guys will figure that part out. I just want to make sure that I didn't misunderstand. This actually is resistance heat versus heat pumps.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, I think we're on the same page there.
Okay.
Well, we'll make sure to address your other comments that we couldn't quite.
Okay.
We'll just do a double check on your questions on all of them, but I do think we understand them. So we do appreciate the comments on that, and thank you for participating today.
Thank you for having this conference, this session, and thank you for taking the questions.
No problem. Thank you. I don't see any other immediate comments or questions in the chat or a hand up, but we do have plenty of time. So I want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak today if they choose to.
Nick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead, Archie.
I was just looking at the changed copy of the rule, called it up on my screen. So Mr. Stevens' comment about after 6 months after adoption. So the rule gets adopted, let's just say make it simple, January. 6 months after that adoption date, people can still install the old furnaces. But after 6 months after adoption, then it has to meet this new regulation, this new requirements.
Yeah. Great, thank you, Archie.
Yeah, and our rule will show that we always present the adoption date there so we can see the start clock for the 6-month period to do the transition.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And one thing I would just like to add, and I think we mentioned it probably in our workshop notes, but while we're tentatively anticipating this going to the board in November, there's always a chance that this could slip for whatever reason, or the board sets the agendas ultimately. And so while we anticipate it would go to the board in November, there's a chance it could always drift a couple months after that, depending on what the schedules look like. So we are hoping to get to the board this November, but just keep in mind that that 6-month time frame is still what would apply based on whenever we can get to the board. That is our proposed change at this point, but just wanted to make sure that was clear. One other thing if we're waiting for any comments or questions to come in too, that I wanted to highlight is Janet posted a link to our workshops page, which some of you may have found or already in getting to this workshop, but this workshops page has all of our workshop notices, supporting documentation, and then with respect to this particular proposed amendment, we did produce some informational videos that are kind of a higher level a higher level overview of what these proposed amendments are doing. And so we put those out on the website a few weeks ago. We do plan to also play those videos at upcoming steering committee meetings for both the Portside Steering Committee and the International Border Steering Committees next week at their respective meetings. So there will be other opportunities to provide comments beyond this workshop. So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of those opportunities as well as the actual videos themselves. There's an English version as well as a Spanish version on there. So feel free to send those to whoever you think may also benefit from them as well. We'd encourage that. I'm going to ask maybe one more chance to see if anybody has any comments or questions today. Like I said, we scheduled this till 3, not knowing if there would, or 3:30, I should say, not knowing if there would be a lot of comments or little comments, but we have plenty of time to get into some if there are any. If not, we can probably go ahead and wrap things up a little earlier than usual. I see a comment in the chat. I have 2 comments actually. I see David, thank you for the video. It was well received with him, so thank you, David. And then Kevin Korstad appreciates being able to listen into this topic on a potential rule for regulating the supply of an emission source. So thank you for the comment, Kevin. Appreciate it. And thanks for joining. And I see David, he wants his hour back, and I think we might be able to give it to you if there are no additional comments. So what I would just add, it looks like we're going to be wrapping up a little early, that again, we're accepting comments through July 2nd. We would encourage everyone to contact us, send Archie an email, send me an email. We're welcome to also chat with you offline on the phone if you do have any comments or concerns about the proposal. We would really like to try to get to all comments received by July 2nd so we can stay on track with our November timeline to get to the board. And again, we will hope to get the response to comments report back out, which will also incorporate any comments we get from the aforementioned steering committee meetings, as well as any comments that we might get offline or emailed to us. All of that will be encompassed into that report. We do hope to get that sent out within a few weeks after today's workshop, but probably, mid to late July, which is when July 2nd is the end of the comment period. So I want to make sure that was clear as well. Okay, I think we're probably going to wrap up here. So I do appreciate everyone joining, and we look forward to hearing your comments if you have any, and Hope you have a good afternoon. Thank you all.
Thanks, Nick.